Talk this evening, and as the thumbnail said, no trucks, no dinner. I'm in a very unique position in that I've hauled almost every single process in the industry that creates beef, hamburgers, and any kind of meat like that. There's one little piece of it I'm missing, but I've hauled everything else to do with that industry. And I appreciate all of you that tune in, and we are going to talk about that very interesting process that gets to your hamburger on your plate or your beef or pork or chicken. It's all the same process. It starts with a farmer. It starts the year before with him planting his year. He's got to plant seed to grow the grain. There's a lot of different products that go into making any kind of meat. And the most important one would be corn. And I was a corn farmer for many years, and I was a grain sorghum farmer and a wheat farmer. Corn goes into cattle in two different forms, both corn grain and corn silage. Silage is where they chop up the entire plant this time of year while it's still green and put it in piles and let it ensile. It's a fermentation process. These are huge piles. They can be 40-foot high, maybe even higher, and hundreds of feet wide. You've got many thousands of tons of material in that. So right now, around here in the Great Plains, they're in the process of harvesting silage, and they're just beginning to harvest corn for grain. Some of the earlier stuff that is beginning to dry down, and also grain sorghum. Grain sorghum is a plant that came from Africa, and it's much shorter. It's red in the fields. Anybody in the Great Plains has seen it, and it's grown all over. It's more drought resistant. But what this is show is about trucking and what trucking has to do with getting you your food. It's a lot more complex than just hauling the meat to your warehouse and then they haul it to you. It starts with the farmer and his preparations. He's got equipment that may have to go off a long ways to be repaired, and it's hauled on drop deck trailers. That's a whole industry themselves of people who haul around heavy equipment. I've done a bit of that, but not a lot of equipment hauling, mostly for myself. And then there's irrigation equipment. Of course, we irrigate out here in the high plains. It's pretty dry and we can get a lot better yields when we irrigate. And then there's also the seed, the fertilizer. All of that are different industries where they're hauled from the plants to the local distributors and hauled to the farmers. So trucking's involved in just keeping the farmer growing or going. So he's planted his welcome. Thank you for coming in. Uh, so the farmer is using a lot of products throughout the year, and he has a lot of trucking, a lot of heavy trucking that's dedicated to his industry. So this time of year, you've got farming is winding down to the harvest time. And like I say, they're doing a lot of silage harvesting here where they chop the entire plant and haul it in and pack it to sit for a half a year or a year before it's fed later. So it's a long process at the feedlots. And so the farmers then end up hauling their grain also to elevators or sometimes directly to the feedlot. On my farm, very rarely would I haul directly to a feeder. They're generally wanting maybe some early corn that's wet. And yeah, we are talking about farming. Thank you. Thank you all for coming in. Uh, so at that point, I have done that. I've done every kind of hauling there is surrounding farming. And later, when my farm shut down, I started doing other types, including a bit of cow hauling, hauling calves to feedlots from the ranches. The only kind of calf hauling I have not done is the finished fat cattle to the packing plant. So at the packing plant, that's where everything happens and everything's cut into meat. And in my later long haul year, I've hauled out of all the packing plants around the whole area. You've got down at Freona, Texas, used to be XL. I know I've been out of it long enough. A lot of these places have changed. You have the Swift packing plant in Cactus, Texas, National Beef in Liberal. You've got Garden City, Dodge City, Fort Morgan, Colorado, and so many more. This is what they call the meat patch out here. We grow the grain, we grow the cattle, and then it's packed, put on trailers, and shipped to you. So later in my long haul career, having uh, used what's called refrigerated freight trailers, or we call them reefers in the industry for short. I've hauled beef, and I'll tell you about a particular load that I picked up in Cactus, Texas. That's north of Amarillo, and hauled it to Brooklyn, New York. It was my first time in Brooklyn. So I was kind of a scared guy coming out from the hinterlands, as they call it, out from the Great Plains and going into the big city of Brooklyn. And it was quite an experience. But fortunately, a local driver there, I told him where I was going, to Western Beef. It's a pretty good sized grocery company there in New York City, maybe in other areas, but I had to go to their frozen and refrigerated food docks there in Brooklyn. I couldn't tell you exactly where it is now, but I went in there and delivered, and it was quite a experience. It was the first time in New York City, and it's a whole different world from out here. In fact, it's different from any other city in America. It's more compact. It's much harder to get back up on the freeways. I wrote a song about that trip called Peterbilt down in Brooklyn, and it's on my site. And it's I am that guy that went in there full of swagger, and I got my fancy truck, and you know the locals laugh at me because they see 100 like me every day, and I thought I was unique. But that's the way it is. Uh, welcome to everybody that's in here. I really appreciate you being in here. We're talking about farm to table, one guy's journey with trucking, about all the different types of trucking that takes to get your food to you. And think about each different item that you buy has its own journey. If it's produce, likely a good portion of the year it comes from the San Joaquin Valley in California, and I've hauled out of there many times. In the wintertime, it's likely to come from Mexico and come out of Nogales or Yuma, Arizona, or Calexico or Laredo. It's shipped through there to uh, places that put them back on new trailers, and then you haul them everywhere. Deep in the winter, a lot of your produce comes from South America, and it will come up to the ports, either Los Angeles or up in Tacoma, Washington. On the East Coast, it comes to Jacksonville. Uh, there in New Jersey at Secaucus and all of that area, that's where your freight comes in. So you go buying grapes in the middle of the winter, well, they probably come from Chile or someplace like that, or even from Africa. I haven't hauled a lot of freight that originated in Africa, but I know it does happen. So to have our modern way of life where we can go to a grocery store and get whatever we want. It's not just truckers, it's growers around the world. It's all sorts of people in warehouses on both ends, the shippers, the receivers. In fact, probably half of us work in a related industry like that. So it's not just truckers. We truckers are uh, we're the connection between it all, and we're glad to do what we do. We're out away from home a lot, but there's a lot of industries like that. Most people that work in the oil patch, they're gone for a long time, especially those that work out on in the Gulf on platforms. I know some of them, and they run some pretty good long shifts, and then they get time at home. Uh, it's a way of life for us, each one of us, to have our convenience. Somebody's had to sacrifice a lot of time for you to have that. So there's so many different types of trucking, in the world. There's local truckers, there's long haul truckers, there's truckers in construction and industry, and I've done a lot of that. And what did I like the most? Well, probably what I was doing at the time. And the reason I quit long haul trucking is, well, I would stay out months at a time and then get a week at home. And I know a few of you who've spent 40, 50 years doing long haul, and my hat's off to you. That is incredible. You probably had a run that got you by the house often. That's typically the ones I knew. They were on either the delivery end or the shipping end of a load, so they didn't have to go a long ways out of their way to go home. It's more difficult for a trucker if he lives in the middle of a load because there when you pick up a load, especially produce or meat, and go to deliver it, there's a lot of pressure to get it done on time, and you don't have a lot of time to sit around. And that's probably one of the biggest constraints in trucking is time. Those guys might look like they have all the time in the world, but they're on some pretty tight schedules. It's just like an airline. You've got a departure time and you've got an expected arrival time within 15 minutes. Imagine driving from uh, Salinas, California to Boston, Massachusetts to the Chelsea market, and you've got a 15-minute delivery window. I did that for 2 years, back and forth. Ran the high road. I had a big old truck. You know, you talk about big trucks. I've driven little trucks and big trucks. That was a W900 uh, Kenworth with a cat engine that was set to 700 horsepower. That's what they told me. I had unusual transmissions of 5x4 boxes. That's two transmissions hooked together. So you got 20 gears. Some people call that twin sticks. That baby would fly. It had a low rear end, and so it could get over the mountains good. But power doesn't do everything for you. Consistency and keeping a consistent speed, and like we say, keep the left door closed. That's everything in trucking. I'm running these live streams just to get used to it. I've noticed some pretty good response to them. And so my whole thing is, I've only been back into this channel, I only started talking about trucking just 5 weeks ago. And we've done amazingly well. I thought I was just going to post a few things. And people started responding, and you've started responding, and I appreciate that. Trucking is a tough industry, and there's a lot of negativity around it. Well, we generate it ourselves because it's a tough job. And everywhere we go, we're driving, and every time you go down the same road, something else happens. I mean, we all drive. We know that just going out to go to the grocery store and back home is dangerous. You never know what's going to happen. So a trucker lives in that environment across the whole country. And it's a dangerous thing, and sometimes we can get kinda cranky when we do that. I remember when I first started trucking, I was mad at everything that happened. Somebody cut me off, I'd get angry, and, my brother was on the phone one time, and he says, how long do you plan to be a truck driver?" And I said, "Well, quite a while, I hope." He said, "Do you wanna be angry the entire time?" Well, he got me on that one, and, I really thought about it, that, when you're out driving in traffic, why is it that we treat people just like, welcome, Jack Spratt, good to see you. Uh, when we're out driving, the tendency is to treat the people next to you, aggressively. But I had an old driver tell me one time, you know, think of those people all around you as your family. How would you treat your family if they are in the car next to you? And I guarantee you, I thought about that, and that kind of changed my attitude. I mean, we were all out there on the road. We hear it all the time. We've got to share the road. Trucks and cars have to share the road. Well, if you get into a tangle, who's going to lose? The person in the car. That is so much smaller, and look at the size of truck tires. They're as tall as some of these cars that are low to the road. So it's dangerous. Those of us who drive trucks, and I know there's a couple of truckers in here right now. They will back me up on this. We constantly, every day, are being careful around cars and constantly looking ahead for something different that might happen, even though that's a road we drive down all the time. One of you in here, I know you drive regular local runs, and I know I I would imagine you have that same problem. Here you go down the same road 50 times, and you know what to expect, and all of a sudden something changes. So we have to always be looking out for that thing that changes. There's a saying they have, expect the unexpected. Well, how can you expect something if you don't expect it? But I think what they mean by that is always be looking out for something that changes. There's a thing in psychology called change blindness. And I know that sounds kind of fancy, but here's what it is. If you look like you come up to a stop sign, I wonder how many of us had this happen. I have. You look over there and it's clear. You look again and there's a car there. Why did you think it was clear? Because your brain thought it was clear. And your brain will put that image from when it was clear in your head. It's kind of scary stuff. That's why we should look twice. And I know this sounds like a safety class and beginning driver's education, but it's true. You know, we need to look twice and think about it and not be in quite such a hurry because you make a mistake, there's bad consequences. At the very least, there's a lot of paperwork to be done. At the very most, it's serious business. So I have rambled along here for 18 minutes, and I hope I've been at least a little bit coherent. But I appreciate you all tuning in live. We've had a good crowd in here, and I appreciate you that watch this later. And I really thank you for the support. And I'm going to read what you were saying. Uh, Max speed and max timelessness is a emotional pit trap. The golden mentality is being calm. That's from Jack Spratt. Absolutely. Probably, you know, I trained 48 drivers back in the day when I did long haul, and the number one quality that made a good driver wasn't the driving skills. That's an assumption that you can drive the truck. It's having a good, calm demeanor and being able to adjust to changing conditions. And I will give you an example of one student that couldn't change for conditions. He was from Dallas. We were driving through the hills of Pennsylvania and right near where it's the highest there in the center of the state. And it started being a few flakes of snow. You know, it was in little later than this time of the year, but a few flakes of snow, you know, nothing to worry about. Well, this kid had seen ice, but he really was scared of snow and he pulled over the shoulder and refused to drive. We eventually made a driver, but he wasn't ready to adjust to snow. Everybody in trucking school had scared him so much about driving snow that he believed them. And every driver's tolerance for different conditions varies, and it's good that he didn't want to outdrive his tolerance. So thank one of you for dropping in. I'm going to shut this off right here at the 20-minute mark. That's the longest time I've ever talked to a camera in my life. You know, you're seeing my record. Thank you so much for joining me. And if we can figure out how to get out of this, I will. So see you next time. Keep the shiny side up.